video in chapter 1. And what we're going to do during this particular YouTube movie is we're going to cover that fourth objective on the agenda. We're going to look at project management. And actually, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. Their entire course is focused on project management. But we're going to give you a kind of brief overview. And the book does talk about it, but really in a fairly superficial and kind of oversight way, looking at some of the tools. So we'll spend some time on the tools, but I want to give you somewhat of a brief overview of where project management is today. So when you look at project management, there are kind of four different approaches that are ongoing out there right now. Traditional, agile, extreme, and emergency. And as you look at those, you can really distinguish between the four based on, do you have a clear understanding of the goal, or do you have a clear understanding of the solution? So if you build a little matrix and map those across, then you're going to use traditional project management, which is covered in the book, when you have a clear goal and a clear solution. And there are lots of different techniques for actually deploying that, two of which are listed there. Linear and incremental are examples of traditional project management. Agile is going to be where you've got a clear goal, but the solution is not clear. How you reach that goal is not clear. And so in that particular case, you're going to go through either iterative or adaptive approaches to truly determine what the goal, what the solution is that will allow you to reach that goal. When you've got a clear solution, but you're not clear what the goal is, and that sounds somewhat odd, but it does occur. You develop a drug, but you're not quite sure what that drug is going to solve, or you develop a technology, but you're not quite sure how that technology could be used. That's an example of an extreme project. And then finally, emergency, which is actually the word extreme spelled backwards, is an example of where you have a not clear goal and a not clear solution. As you might imagine, emergency and extreme have high risk, agile, less risk, and traditional, the least amount of risk, because you know more. In a traditional project, you have a clear goal and a clear solution, so it's a fairly straightforward approach. Agile, you've got a clear goal but no clear solution, and thus there's more risk. And then again, for extreme and emergency, much more risk associated with these particular types of projects. When you look at project distribution, traditional projects are about 20% of the projects that are out there. Agile is around 70%. Extreme and emergency are each about 5%. So most of the projects out there are agile. You do need to be careful in that most of the consulting companies want to sell you traditional project management, as that's the one that has the least amount of risk to them. All right, so now that you've got this kind of overview of project management, let's superficially dip our toes into the water and look at some components that may be associated with a traditional project management approach. So as you're looking through that kind of program lifecycle or project lifecycle, you've got different stages or steps that you have to go through, starting with, what are the requirements, moving into the concept development, system design, development and testing, deployment, and then operation. As you're doing that, you have to integrate with existing systems. You have to look at what is in scope and what is out of scope. How much time, one of those resources that you have to accomplish this task. How much money do you have? At what quality level do you want to deploy a particular system? How many people are associated with this? How are you going to communicate this throughout the organization and get people on board? What's the risk associated with this, and what are potential sources of risk? And then how are you going to handle the procurement action? So as you might imagine, there's a great deal of steps associated with a project for larger projects, you can have a very large team that's associated with managing that project. As you're doing that, there are lots of different management tools that you can use, and again, we're going to kind of superficially talk about a couple of these, using a work breakdown structure, some task sequencing approaches, a Gantt chart, and then talk a little bit about automated project management tools like Microsoft Project. And I don't have any stock in Microsoft, but the project tool they have has a rich repertoire of different tools that you can use to manage projects, and it's probably worth the investment to, if you're going to work within security or you're going to work within IT, to have some passing knowledge of how Microsoft Project works. So let's go through these pretty quickly. Work breakdown structure, it's really where you're, here's an example from Excel, where you're going out and you're just assigning tasks to different people to do, and you're kind of tracking their duration. Here we're building a Pert Chart where we're looking at all of the different tasks and how much time, and starting to show the relationships between those tasks. We've got 5 milestones, 6 activities associated in some language of prerequisite and successor tasks. Here's Perk Chart, and in this case we're starting to identify what's our longest path, what's that critical path indicated in red, what's going to take the longest amount of time. So as we go to optimize a project, we want to start optimizing on that critical path initially, rather than optimize on something that is not on the critical path. It shortens the entire project. And then finally, here's a Gantt chart that kind of pulls it all together. Again, my expectation is that you can't read the Gantt chart at this point, but that you get some sense of this idea of scheduling. And when you have hundreds of people or hundreds of millions of dollars involved with a project, obviously you're going to spend a good bit of time tracking these types of things to make sure that you stay on track and that you complete a successful project. Well, like I said, this is very much a superficial covering of project management as it relates to what's in the book. There are entire courses on this topic. In fact, I teach a course on this topic, and much more detail. But this is the computer security course, not a project management course. And you do need to know some project management and be effective with those tools as you go forward and work within computer security. All right, well, enough of Chapter 1. Look at that. We've gone through, talked about the Macomber Cube, the CNSS model. We've talked about management and leadership, and we've talked a little bit about project management. So next lesson, we're going to start talking about planning for security, get into mission, vision, and value statements, and organizational structures, and a couple of other things. So keep on studying, keep on learning, and I look forward to seeing you in the next YouTube video.